First of all, thank you all for inviting me. This is a very emotionally charged subject for all, and it is as well for me and my organization. The NAACP is the oldest, most effective civil rights organization in American history. We're 104 years old, 100 years old in Providence this year. I just think this is the biggest scam that I've heard in recent memory. I mean, talk about the tail wagging the dog. When I heard that 40% of all Rhode Island 11th graders failed the test, not 4%, but 40%, I said, to me, that is a problem of the system. The system is failing. I heard it was 60 to 70% in Providence. You got to be kidding me. 60 to 70% of the kids in Providence are not bunking school, are not irresponsible, are not kids that don't pay attention in class. I know that when you use that poverty word as an excuse, that's always an excuse. I happen to know that, let's use the Latino community for an example. Okay, because they want us to talk about, well, we have more poverty here, so that's why we have more kids, not passing the test. Well, I happen to know that in this country, Latino test scores, they've been standardized testing everybody for years, but Latino test scores were the worst in the country. And we're talking about against other Latinos in other states. Now, Commissioner Gist corrects me, he says, it's no longer worse in the country, now it's next to the worst in the country. And I said, but Commissioner, in the country we have the South Bronx, New York, we have the boroughs of East LA, California, we have El Paso, Texas. Certainly, those kids are as poor, if not more challenging than kids here. I'm not buying that these kids here are more challenging. I just don't believe it. But yet we're last or next last in the country. That's the system. When you compare apples to apples, that's the system. So to me, just talking about a test in general, it doesn't make any sense. Period. You've got to fix the problem. The fundamental problem is that kids are not getting what they should get. Period. 40% of the whole state. The whole state is not poor. I mean, the whole state doesn't have these challenges that some kids have that are really up against the 8 ball. So my thing is that it's discriminatory because, kids in the cities and others have a higher chance of not showing that improvement. And then I have a TV show, and I had Commissioner Gist on the show, and I said, well, she said, well, I get to show a little bit of improvement. And I said, well, then why even do it? That doesn't make you proficient. Why even do it? I mean, if you're just trying to, make sure you don't have huge failure rates, then why do it? I mean, she said, well, what's more tragic than a kid that can't read or write with a high school diploma? And I said, a kid that can't read or write without a high school diploma. That's easy. That was an easy one. That was a layup for me. What are you talking about? Of course that's worse than, and I said, I'm not in favor of social promotions. I'm not in favor of social promotions. So if you got to deal with kids, in terms of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth grades, whatever, in terms of making sure that kids, are able to do the work in the next grade, then fine. So I have a problem, with that. I mean, I'm not against, NECAP in general, but not as a graduation requirement, as an assessment tool to figure out what a classroom is like, or school is like, or even what an individual is like. Maybe there is some value. I'm not sure if that's the right test, but maybe there is some value. But take it out of the high stakes testing realm of graduation requirement, and let's see what happens. And then I remember the commission talked about all these supports that we're going to have over 1 year. So what are we going to have? So instead of 40% of the state failing, we'll have 20% of the state failing, 20% of Rhode Island seniors not graduating. That would be the highest rate in the country. What good is that going to do? We already have a problem in terms of not having kids that are adequately prepared for the businesses that want to come into any state. That's the problem, not the tax rate. It's training and educating the students. Well, the system is not doing that. Where's the evaluation of the system? It's not happening. So don't blame the kids. And I grew up in inner city Boston. I went to kids with kids from inner city Chicago, inner city St. Louis, Alabama, Mississippi, all rural, poor areas. And what happened with them? Well, they graduated in 3 years. They became judges, they became doctors, they became lawyers. And they were from the inner city. Where did I go to school? I went to school in Hanover, New Hampshire. It was called Dartmouth College. And those tests didn't mean a damn thing. SAT didn't mean anything. Those kids were scoring, you know, maybe 500, 450, I don't know what it was. But because when I went to school, that was an era of opportunity. I won't say what happens. We'll just throw these kids to the wall. The vast majority of those kids not only succeeded, but they end up Rhodes Scholars. They ended up doing phenomenal things. Dr. Ben Carson was one of those kids out of the project in Detroit. He's the #1 pediatric neurosurgeon in the world. So, I mean, this whole talk about a standardized test as some kind of way of proving whether or not a student is prepared for life, to me is a joke. It needs to be, it's a bad joke. We spend too much money and too much time dealing with this. It doesn't prove anything. I know that 40% are not going to fail. It's not going to be a fail rate this year. I mean, maybe it's 20%. Maybe not 70% of Providence kids. Maybe it's just 50%. Kids will not graduate from high school. No? Hey, 70% down to 50%. Hey, good. It's a lot, huh? You know, lies, figures lie, and liars fake. I mean, the whole thing is, to me, almost like a farce. It really, really is at this point. And I think that we just have to see it for what it is. I mean, standardized tests do not prove anything. I mean, they can be a measure in terms of how people are doing relative to other people. It's like from school to school, district to district, even state to state. I'm not going to discount that. I mean, you know, there's obviously evidence that suggests there's some value there. But to penalize the student, as my friend Reverend Anderson said, the double whammy. You know, he's not gotten the geometry that he should have gotten in 10th grade, okay, which colleges expect you to have in 10th grade, not 11th grade, where you take the NECAP and you never even had geometry, which is 30% of the math test. When I heard that, I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, 30% of the test and a person hasn't even seen the body of work. Well, they can take it again in the senior year, and then they'll catch up and have geometry in the junior year. Well, that's out of the sequence of what most colleges expect, for one. So the system should be adherent to what they should be doing in the first place, and having geometry as a 10th grade subject. So, I mean, to me, you know, it's going to be a bad situation. It was the first time I put a spotlight on it. We're going to come back with this because it's I guess, what did my whole time, oh yes, ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And, you know, then I'll just tell I wouldn't talk about it.